Good morning and good afternoon to everyone joining around the world. I make it 1 minute past 3 here in the UK, so I think it's time to kick off. So welcome everyone to a webinar, our fourth webinar in this series on how to master your CRM data in 2025, where today we're going to be looking at a live demo of how to clean your CRM data to make it from chaos to clean in hopefully minutes. So look forward to sharing that with you today and another few points that we're going to look at. So in today's meeting, we have an agenda. We have a few points to look through. We are going to introduce DQ Global to some of you who are not familiar with ourselves. We're going to look at some of the key aspects of why data quality is important. And I know we reiterate this, but it puts it into context when we look at the live demo. We're going to look at some typical client challenges that we've seen in the past. And that, again, that will put a bit of a spin on the context as to why these solutions are important for those challenges. We're going to look at a demo of a product called DQ4 Dynamics. We're going to be looking at search, capture, cleanse, and consolidate, and that will mean more a little bit later. And then we're going to look at some technical information for some of the technical folks on the call, and also a Q&A. So as we go through, please put your questions in the chat, and we'll have a look at those, and we will have enough time at the end to pick those up. So those of you who aren't familiar with DQ Global or haven't heard of us before, firstly, my name is Conor Doyle. I head up the sales function here at DQ. And ultimately, at our core, we are a software development house. We help organizations to overcome the challenges when it comes to managing data within D365. People who are fed up with the manual time it takes, and just overwhelmed when it comes to the huge investment that's been made in the system, only to be let down by the data. So we work with end users, we work through Microsoft partners alongside those partners to try and improve the quality of data to ultimately get 100% back from the investment that you've made in CRM. So let's start off with an interesting concept called start with the why. And this is why we believe that organizations should care about data quality. And I think this aligns with CRM initiatives as well. So I think you've got to start with, why are you doing this? Why have you implemented a CRM system? What is the purpose? It's to support engagement and make sure that you're able to manage those relationships with clients, prospects, whoever it may be, across different industries. And the purpose of putting that CRM system in is only going to be let down if the data is not supporting those initiatives. So making sure that that's at the core of what we're thinking. Growth, again, a lot of organizations look to a CRM system to boost sales, to manage the sales process, or deepen relationships with clients. So I want to make sure that, again, the data is supporting growth within the business and why you've put a CRM system in the place, specifically D365. Trust. We think data, we think relationships boils down to trust. If you don't trust the data, you don't trust the process, or you don't trust the reporting, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll talk more on that point on another slide. And then finally, compliance. In the world that we live in, here in Europe with GDPR, and the US regulations are getting tighter as well, we've got to make sure that we're compliant to KYC, GDPR, EU legislation. And that goes without saying that the data supports that process. So some of the core pillars as to why data quality is important and the lifeblood of a CRM system. That's just not our thoughts. This is other people's thoughts as well. So here's some stats. So we've got 56% of firms mention questionable data quality as a major factor, over 50%. And that was just last year. We've got 40% of new records that are created in the database that have at least one critical error, and that was HBR last year. And the one that really shocks me is that 84% of CEOs say that they're concerned about the integrity of the data that they're using to make decisions. Now, that's a ridiculously high figure in our eyes, and something that obviously trying to combat and overcome. So when it comes to trust and it comes to making decisions, some of you might have seen this before. We came up with this concept called the Leaning Tower of Data. And this is to break down the AI conversation that a lot of people are having at this moment in time. So the Leaning Tower of Data, similar to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, at the bottom you have your data, your foundation, you then have information, you then have knowledge, and then you have wisdom. And to put a tiny bit of context to that, data is fundamentally just ones and zeros. And if I said to any of you one, you'd go one what, one apple, 1 foot. And that is putting context into data. And that's what information is. So we now say 1 foot. Fantastic. But is that 1 foot above Everest? Is that 1 foot above sea level? Well, that's now putting even more context around that piece of data and information to then have an understanding of where we are. Now, if you are 1 foot above sea level and you know a wave is coming in at 2 feet, you should really go to 3 feet. Now, that's wisdom. That's knowing the action you should take out of having that piece of information and knowledge and context, contextual knowledge around that. So to put that back into the CRM space, if we have a broken data foundation, we have our application data sat in CRM. We then layer that up on top of reports and dashboards. We have insights and decisions that we're making out of those dashboards. And then we layer AI on the top of that, like Copilot. We have a distortion from the truth. And again, that's why this conversation about data quality is becoming so important, because people are rapidly getting to these insights. But if you don't trust the data at the foundational level, then it's all going to fall down. So with that in mind, what are clients or prospects typically seen as a challenge when it comes to data quality? Again, boils down to trust. Trust when it comes to CRM customer data. If the trust isn't there, then people just don't use the system, and actually the adoption reduces even further. Time. Fed up with the time it takes to overcome duplicate records or poor quality data. And I think a lot of people have experienced that on the call here. Huge time and effort comes with that investment in time, only to be let down by the data when you're working on the system. GDPR and compliance, we've already spoken about, is a huge challenge. People want to drive insights, they want to use Copilot. We don't trust the data, we want to build an extension on our house, but we don't trust the foundations. So the same analogy applies. And then really a feeling of powerless, feeling powerless when clients are trying to manage data that's coming into the system. They know their house is already dirty, therefore why would you let new information come in, new data come in to that house? And it really feels like a roadblock. So trying to break down those silos of data to make sure you have a single record of truth. So jumping into the product suite and then jumping into a demo. What are we going to talk about today to overcome some of those challenges and make sure that we are supporting the business with high quality data and fueling that CRM system correctly? There's a suite called DQ for Dynamics, Data Quality for Dynamics. And the first thing we're going to look at, first module, is called Search. And I'll show you that in the demo. That's how we can search for records more powerfully and find accounts and contacts using fuzzy search logic. We're going to look at Capture. Capture is where we're going to look at entering email, phone, and address information more quickly and more accurately. We're going to look at Cleanse, which is to do with batch cleansing and processing of data in the background. As data comes in from APIs, we want to make sure that that's checked and it's not bypassed by users. And then finally, we're going to look at Consolidate. Consolidate is where we're going to find duplicate records and we're going to remove those duplicate records either manually or automatically. So we're going to walk through these 4 products and pray to the demo gods. So what we've got here is just a standard form in Dynamics. And what we're going to do is we're going to search for a record in the relevant search here. So I'm going to search for click dimension. And what I see here when I search for the record is I have one. And I would normally select that record. That's absolutely fine. What if there were other records that were spelt differently? With that in mind, we have created a search function. And you'll see here on the side, data quality search. And in here, what I can do is enter exactly the same string that I'm searching with. And when I search, what you'll see is now I have found multiple variants of click dimensions. We have click dimensions LLC, click dimension spelt with a K and with an SIN and limited. We have click dimensions limited, And again, we have a different variant spelled there. Now that is allowing us to now search for records that we wouldn't alternatively found in the system. We can then start to tag those records and say, oh, I want to compare those as potential duplicates and review them and send them to a review screen. I want to hyperlink to the records. So you can now start to remediate the data and fix it as we go along. If we click there, we go review, this will go to our review screen where we can review them as potential duplicate candidates. And we'll talk more about this screen in the consolidate module. So that is search. Hopefully quite a straightforward function, but really quite powerful to users when finding records. So let's move on now. We looked at search. Let's go and have a look at capture. Capture is to do with data being entered into the system, specifically emails, phones, and addresses. So what we're going to do, excuse me, I'll go onto the contact table, is we're going to create a new contact, and I'm going to create Conor Doyle, and I'm going to enter my email address, and I'm going to spell it D, and then instead of Q Global, I'm going to spell it dgglobal.com. And what I'm going to do is go and check that to see, A, does it look like an email? Should it be formatted? And actually live ping to see whether that email delivers. So as I select this function or I tab off of this field, we will live ping this email. And actually what I've done, I've even spelled it more incorrectly. Let's go and check that again. We'll see that DG Global is not a valid domain, and Conor does not exist at that domain. So therefore we have a red X, and there is actually a setting to prevent a user from even saving this record if you want to. So we know that this now, and what we can do is go and correct that, and we can go and ping the email, and now we can see that the email delivers. We have a green tick. We're going to layer that up, and we're going to look at telephone numbers. And telephone numbers are obviously country specific. So I'm going to select the UK dialing code, +44. I'm going to put 02392 988 303, which is our office number. We're going to look to see that it has the correct number of characters. We're going to format it. So what you'll see is this 0 will drop. And the final step will be to authenticate this email, which is to line test the email to see whether it delivers. So if we do that, we get the green tick. We can see we have +44. We've dropped the 0, so it's now correctly formatted. And when we save this record, it will now save into the database with the correct format. And this is critical for click to dial. So if I wanted to dial this telephone number, it would now know where to route internationally. And also on inbound routing, the telephone number has been standardized so that this record will pop on an inbound call. So again, critical and optimizing usage of the system with a telephony integration. Finally, we're going to look at an address lookup, and everyone's used one online. We're going to search for the specific country that we want, and this is supported with 240 different countries. And what we can do is either look up via postcode or look up via a company name. So if we look up PO139 Foxtrot Uniform, what we can see is we have these addresses. We have 9 addresses at this location, and you can see here we have DQ Global, and this address will map back into the system so that we, A, have a far faster way to collect that address, but also a postally verified address in the system. So that is capture, and an easy way for users to interact with tools that's not going to change their way of working much. Okay. So let's now go up a level. We've looked at search. We've looked at capture. This is to do with users entering data into forms. This can be applied across all forms, quick create forms, accounts, contacts, leads, etc., any form in the system. We're going to move up to cleanse. Now, if data comes in through an integration or records are uploaded via Excel, that is going to bypass this process. And if that happens, we still want the data to be checked. So we're going to look on the left-hand side here on the email audits. I'm going to just discard these changes for now. And what we'll see is in the background, there are plugins firing that when data is entered into the system, we will pick up that change, that creation of data. We will pick up the update of an email, telephone, or address, and we will recheck and revalidate the information. And that gets written into a table here where you can see whether the email is authentic, yes or no, and that is now your audit trail of high or low quality data. Okay, so that works across emails, phones, and addresses, and is working in the background as a plugin. So won't show you the ins and outs of that, but hopefully the use case applies. Some questions coming in the chat. I'll pause as hopefully it'll be relevant with the integration to check whether the email is live and if the phone number is just work for bulk imports. Yes, Nadia, I think hopefully that answers your question. Is as data comes in, it will get pinged against the plugin will fire and write the results into this table. And then David, can the email audit cleanse tool run against records that already exist? So yes, what we do is we actually onboard. We'll run an onboarding process to take all of the emails, phones, addresses in the system, whether they're tied to your accounts, contacts, leads, or any table, and we will bulk run those to get you up to speed. So yeah, great question there. Okay, any questions? Keep them coming in the chat. They're really useful. Okay, we've looked at search, we've looked at capture, we've looked at cleanse. The final part we need to look at is consolidate, which is all around managing duplicate records. And we're going to start off right at the kind of base level and look at tagging two records, which people are probably fairly familiar with. If I tag two records here, I've got Andy and Andrew Murray. And if I tag those, I typically use the merge button here. And when I use that merge button, I can only tag two records at a time, and they get sent to this review screen. And I would pick one of these as the record. I'd select maybe a job title change, and then I'd commit that to the database. Well, that's pretty painful if we have another Andy Murray. So at its simplest level, we have allowed users to tag an additional record, and in doing so, send it to our DQ review screen. So when I select that here, it sends it to our review screen, which we looked at earlier, and this will allow us to then review all of these records. We can add multiple fields on the left-hand side. There's no limit on those fields to review which record you might want to keep, what information you might want to update, so that you can then form your best record before you then merge and deactivate the duplicate records. And they would get reassigned, just like the out-of-the-box tool. So if you're a user going through the system, a very, very simple way to tag records and then resolve them there and then in the system. But you know, that's still a challenge if you've got thousands of duplicates. So let's close this down now and let's take a look at an app that is going to allow us to mass group together duplicate records. So we'll see here, we have an app called DQ4 Dynamics. And when we click on that, it's going to go into a world where we can run sessions to match records together and bulk combine duplicate records. So we see here, we're running on the account or the contact tables. We can actually deduplicate any table, so any custom table or any non-mergeable table in the system, opportunities, etc. And we're going to take a look at this session here, the contact table, where we have 16 records that have been fed, 12 duplicates in 4 duplicate groups. And this is working on data sets of 1 million plus. There's no limits here. This is purely for demo purposes that we're using these small volumes. So we have these records grouped together. And similar to earlier, where I showed you click dimensions and how we could search and find multiple variants of click dimensions, we're going to apply the same fuzzy matching in this world. So you can see here we have Jim, we have James Bond, we have Fred, Freddie Flintstone, we have different variants of Homer Simpson or Anthony and Tony Stark. And we're able to then apply transformations to the data to go and find more records that could be potential duplicates. So I'm going to pick up this record, I'm going to go and review it. And we're going to look at this review screen where I could say, oh, fantastic, you know, I've got a duplicate here that I want to manually promote. It might be this record, and that would be the one that I keep in the system, this one here. Or I might have other pieces of information I might want to populate across. And I could manually work through those, but it's still a fairly painful process. So we've enabled automation in here so that you can automatically select the record that you want to pick as the master, the one that's going to stay as your primary record in the system, and then fill information from the duplicates onto the master record so that you have one single record in the system. So what I've done is I have to find a rule to say I want to automatically promote the record that was created on the oldest, and that's just a rule we've defined in the background. And when I select that rule, it will automatically select this record, the one that was on the 10th of October at 12:45, and these records were all created after that. But we still have a bit of a challenge. We have a job title that is marked as classified, and on here, if I was looking at this manually, I'd probably say, yeah, well, he is a spy because that occurs more frequently. We can see that there's an email address on these records. We can see there's a more complete address block. So we want to fill that data onto the surviving record. And that's what this autofill feature will help us do. If I press this here, it will execute rules at field level to fill the information. And where you see that the data has gone green, you can see it's moved across. So we have the most complete address on the surviving record. We have a telephone number, an email, and we have a job title. So we're then ready. We have the best information on this record to merge those records, and we would deactivate these duplicates just like the out-of-the-box process, and we would reassign the related data so that anything attributed to those contacts would get reassigned, and you'd see all of that information. Okay, and that goes for not just this group, but you can actually apply that to all of these records and bulk process the records. So you can promote the best record, fill the best record, and merge them. And we have a client that has merged north of 900,000 duplicate records using this process where they schedule the records to run on a regular basis, pick up duplicates, and automatically process in the background. So hopefully saving hundreds of thousands of hours of review time. Okay, conscious of time and a few questions in the chat. So let me take a look at questions. Just jumping back to the email audit tool, correct invalid data where possible or simply notify us of invalid data. So it will correct where there are standard errors like .con or there's a double @ symbol or telephone numbers could be formatted. But if it's not able to do that, it will mark it and say it's invalid and a user needs to intervene with that piece of data. Then we have a question from Chris. For consolidate, can records be excluded from the merge or can be forced to the master based on criteria such as status or linked to other entity, I suppose, opposed to oldest? So yeah, good question. We have, you can select master records on other criteria. You could use status. You can also decide on a related piece of information. So you could say the contact that had the most emails, the contact that had the most X, Y, or Z, and we can look into related entities and make that decision. So yeah, great question. So another question, and then we'll jump back into the presentation. Does DQ have experience with data cleanliness CE projects for systems that are dual write integrated with F&O? Yes, we do. We have a few clients that are using F&O, and so I think what we'll do is probably take that to the side, David, and if you want to contact us at the end, we can take that one as that's a slightly bigger subject. And then can DQ cleanse tools allow certain duplicate contact with the same image? F&O. Maybe we'll pick that one up, David, on offline, and I'll jump back into the presentation now, if that's okay. Perfect. Okay. 5 minutes to go. Demo is done. Any questions, please continue to pop them in the chat. Some technical information for the technical folks on the call. We price on the number of records. If you've got 50,000 records, we start at X. And as that goes up to 1 million records, the price is Y. The more records, the more challenge, therefore the more value within the solution. This is not just a tool. We find that the best outcomes come from where you have great knowledge on your system, D365, and your processes. We have great knowledge when it comes to data and how it hangs together in D365, and we've got to combine those two. So we typically wrap around professional services for guidance and consultancy on those projects. We've already showed there the multi-record review screen, saving huge amounts of time when reviewing records. There's 1.5 million transformations that we've got, which we showed some of those with James, Jim, and Jimmy Bond, that allows for fuzzy matching. We can match across entities, so lead to contact to make sure that you're not contacting clients that are already in the database. And a lot of our clients use that functionality to save embarrassment. Huge amounts of automation and scheduling. We haven't even touched on that really today, but did show you some of the mastering and autofill rules. Last week, I worked with a client and we had this up and running, installed and provisioned in 30 minutes. I'm not saying that's always the case, but that is how quick this can get into the system and up and running and finding duplicate records. And European clients, we are matching across English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. So it is multilingual as well. Any questions? Anyone who wants to have a chat? Anyone who would like any guidance? Please reach out to me. We either through my email or I have a LinkedIn scan code there in a minute, and we'll do a high-level audit, if obviously with your permission, and then give 3 tailored recommendations. That doesn't have to be with us. That can be with anyone. So hopefully that's helpful. And like I said, any other questions, please pop them in the chat. I'll be here for another 3 or 4 minutes, and I look forward to connecting with everyone and look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you very much. So let me have a look. We have another question. We have, can we validate data on D365 based on data across other systems using this tool? So with this tool, we're looking at data just residing within D365. We're reading from Dataverse. We do have other technology that can cross-compare and read data from 130 other systems, and then we can do our matching across the system. So not with this tool. It's specifically bound to D365. However, we have other solutions that we can talk about and hopefully help with. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay. Any other questions on the chat? Don't think so. If that is the case, I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Thank you for joining, and hopefully that was useful. Have a great day.